Alright, so this is the new Nanlite Forza 300B, and I've been using it for the last few weeks, and I do have to be honest, the number of different ways that you can use this light, seriously out of this world. Like, you'll see what I mean in this video. How's it going, guys? My name is Andrew Murphy from Down Under in Gold Coast, Australia. So the latest light that Nanlite just released is the Nanlite Forza 300B, and you can see it as, I guess, a bit of an upgrade from the Forza 300, but at the same time, they're also two completely different lights, which I'll detail on a little bit later in this video. So the Forza 300B is a 355 watt bicolored LED light that has a color temperature range from 2700 to 6500 Kelvin, has a CRI of 96 and a TLCI of 98, 12 built-in effects, and it's pretty small considering like the amount of power and light that this thing actually puts out. So like basically nearly every Nanlite product, it comes in this amazing carrier case, which if you've ever used a Nanlite product before or seen one of their cases, you know what I mean. Like, I'm not even joking, the quality of these bags is just so good, and it's basically like a feature in itself. Like, they're just super high quality. I don't know, they're just so good. So inside we have the actual head with the light, and also comes with this little protective cap on it. And be sure not to lose this protective cap, because obviously when you're not using it and you're storing it away, you want to be able to protect this COB chip on the front. That's what this is actually for. And be sure as well to actually take it off when you're operating. It's not like some sort of diffuser, it's literally just a protective cap. Next we have the reflector, which just helps us focus any like stray light to increase the intensity. Next up we actually have the ballast, which is where we have all our power and also our controls, and I'll show you why having your controls on a separate thing from the light is actually a way better feature, which again I'll touch on a little bit later. And on the back here we have our power brick, but we can also power this via two 14.8 volt V-Lock batteries, which is really, really cool. We have our power cable, and then also our cable that actually powers our light from the ballast itself. And then finally, just a little mount to actually mount this to a light stand to actually hold the ballast so it clips in here, just to actually mount it on a light stand so it keeps it all nice and neat. Now, straight off the bat, this thing is rugged as hell. I recently used it on a short film, and I'm not happy to say, but it fell over a couple of times onto the road, onto its face here, and it held up really good, so I haven't had any issues, so it's obviously good to see. And also the metal design just makes it look the part, like it's like a really high-end product. Now, if you are new to two-piece lights, then this is going to look a little bit weird to you, basically having the head of the light with nothing but a power cable input on it. It's gonna be a little bit weird, but this design is awesome because basically it means that all the main components, which usually take up a bit of space, can actually be mounted in the ballast, and it reduces the size of the headlight. This thing is absolutely freaking tiny, considering how much power comes out of it. Now, I do have to say that one thing I'm not a huge fan of with this head design is that you have to actually unlock both sides of these mounts to basically swivel it. So I can understand like why they've done it, and there are benefits, I guess. So it's a lot more sturdier when you do lock it down. Like, it's definitely not going anywhere, but it's just something you have to get used to. Like, if you come from a light that just has to unlock one to undo it, just again, another thing you have to get used to. Now, one main benefit of having no controls on the actual head itself is that when you're booming the light up high, we basically wouldn't have access to the back of the light head to adjust our controls. So having a ballast with all the power controls and displays and everything is much better, because we've got to mount this on the ground or at like waist height, and we can do all our adjustments much easier. Now, I recently released a tutorial basically showing how I use the Forza 300B with the lantern attachment, which I'm using right now, to create a day to night kind of like dining scene look. So if you want to figure out, learn how to basically do that, I'll leave a link up here so you can check that one out. Now, the ballast itself is actually quite simple, but it has a lot of control through it as well. So if we're going to use basically like a power outlet in a house, we've got the power brick here, and it just clips into the bottom V-Lock mount on here, and then we just need to plug in our little socket here, and then obviously plug it into the wall, which makes it super easy to power. But then as well, a cool thing having it separated like this is that we can run it off batteries as well. So if we then take this out, and then we grab a couple of V-Lock batteries, we can just clip one in the bottom, clip one in the top, and then we basically have a super portable, super easy to use 300 watt light, which is super duper cool. The main display on the Forza 300B is super duper crispy, as are like most of the displays I've noticed on Nanlite products, and basically has all the information that you would need to be able to control. The dials on this as well were actually like quite intuitive to use and quite easy to adjust. So when you're in CCT mode, the left dial adjusts whatever is on the left side of the display, and the right dial adjusts whatever is on the right side of the display. And then when you move over to the effects mode, basically the left dial adjusts whatever is actually highlighted, and then the right dial goes through each of the different settings. So then you can basically adjust everything that you need to. We also have DMX in and out on the ballast as well, which is really cool. It's not something that I've ever actually used, but I have been kind of interested in it more lately, because then you can just obviously plug everything into a DMX board and then adjust everything from one single place. Now, being able to actually power this via batteries is one reason that it steps it up or steps it away from, say, like the FS lineup from Nanlite. With them, it's just you just got an AC input. There's no way of powering it via batteries. So that is kind of like what the main difference is between the Forza lineup and the FS series. Now, the main thing with powering this light off V-Lock batteries is that they recommend batteries that can basically output a consistent 12 amps of power. And while I was doing research to actually get some batteries to use with this light, I found that most batteries could actually do 12 amp, or if they could, they were just like ridiculously expensive. Now, Nanlite does make their own 14.8 volt V-Lock battery, which I guess would pair perfectly with this, but I was kind of like looking for something that was very, very small and quite versatile, and I found these little like Came TV ones that work really good with this actual light. Plus, I also wanted to go with a V-Lock battery that was under 100 watts, because sometimes I do travel for work. In Australia anyway, basically anything over 100 watt hours you can't take on a plane with you. So that means that I can travel with these safely. Super duper easy. Now, comparing the Forza 300B to the Forza 300, the main difference is obviously the bicoloredness of the Forza 300B. And you're also going to lose a slight bit of output on the 300B at that 5600 Kelvin temperature. And this is because on the Forza 300, you've got basically all 5600 Kelvin chips, as opposed to this one, which has a mixture of warm and cool chips to make up those color temperature differences. So if you are looking for maximum light output at 5600 Kelvin and you're not looking for anything that is bicolored, then the Forza 300 would be more suited towards you. But if you are looking for someone that kind of wants more versatility and they can use the light in lots of different ways, and is happy to sacrifice a little bit of output, then definitely Forza 300B would be the better option for you. Now, actually using this light practically, it is freaking amazing to use, and it has 3 different modes that you can use it in. So the first is max output mode, which will basically give you the most amount of power from the light across the board. However, when we cycle through our color temperatures, on our max output mode, the brightness will change ever so slightly depending on the Kelvin value that we are actually on. And that is because at say like 2500 Kelvin, for instance, it's only using some of those light chips. Whereas say in somewhere in the middle where it's got a mix of those, it's going to be using basically all the chips, so it'll be a little bit brighter. So Nanlite's solution for this is basically what they call a constant output mode. And in this mode, you're basically going to get a maximum output in all modes, but keeping it consistent. So in some of the modes where say it's a mixture and it's using all the chips, it would dial it down ever so slightly, which is basically perfect if you're going to be changing the color of the light in say like a shot. You're not going to change the actual exposure values of the light coming from this. And finally, there is a fan off mode, which will drastically drop the output to 15%, but it does allow you to use the light without the fan on. So obviously this huge drop in output is to reduce the heat that the light is actually producing to stop any damage happening to the component in the light itself. So if you absolutely must have zero fan noise, then it is possible, but you have to remember that that max output is going to be dropped to 15%. Now, if you were to opt for fans on, they're not super noticeable anyway. Basically, I've got the Forza 300B on right now with the fans, so this is what it sounds like with the fans on. And then if I was to dive into the settings and turn the fans off, then this is what it sounds like with the fans off. The Forza 300B is also compatible with the Nanlite remotes now, and I think it actually comes in the kit with them now, which is really, really cool, which actually means basically shooting by yourself. It is so much easier, especially when you're using a ton of different lights. I literally have this remote with me every single time I'm using these lights because it just makes it so much quicker to adjust. Like, I can turn off my key light, turn it back on. Like I'm using the FS150 right now, and everything's controlled by this. Now, as for price, the Forza 300B will set you back $899 US, which is definitely not cheap if you are on a budget, but compared to like other lights in the market, it is very good value for the features that you get and the quality of the light that it is actually producing. But anyway, if you did find this review helpful, then consider liking and subscribing to the channel, because I've released content just like this every single week. If you want to find out more about the Forza 300B, I'll leave some links in the description below. Otherwise, stay creative and just be you. Have fun.